The weight of discipline. I used to think that discipline was just a word thrown around in speeches, something that sounded nice in motivational quotes but didn't really apply to the chaos of everyday life. I mean, who has time to be disciplined in a world where everything moves at 100 miles an hour? Fast food for your soul, fast relationships, fast everything. That's how we live now, right? But somewhere, deep down, I knew there was something more. Something that could cut through the noise. It wasn't just about the grind, it was about power, real, unshakable power, and the discipline that forms the backbone of it. It wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I understood what discipline truly meant. It wasn't the flashy, get-rich-quick hustle, it was the quiet, consistent effort, done when no one was looking. I guess that's the first lesson: discipline is not the thing that screams for attention. It's the thing that works silently, behind the scenes, constructing your strength while the world shouts for shortcuts. Discipline is often painted as a stern, unfeeling concept, a force that rules with an iron fist. But in truth, it's a kind of love. Not the kind you feel when you get a hug or a sweet text, but the deeper, more sustaining kind, the kind of love that demands you be the best version of yourself, no matter how hard it gets. It's love in the form of power. A power that tells you, get up even when it's easier to stay in bed. It doesn't apologize for being hard, because it knows that the harder you work, the more you'll grow. And the more you grow, the more you can give to others. I think the trick is understanding that power is not something you take from others. True power doesn't dominate, it empowers. It's a subtle force, but it requires discipline. Power built on discipline isn't temporary, it's lasting. It sticks around like the echo of your actions. But power without discipline? That's fleeting. It burns out. That's why so many people chase after power only to find it slipping away. They didn't build the foundation first. So here's the thing, to truly live with power, you must first live with discipline. It isn't something that's handed to you, it's something you create, piece by piece, every single day. It's about learning how to love yourself enough to push through the tough stuff, the stuff that makes you want to quit. It's about setting yourself up to succeed, even when you don't feel like it. And trust me, that's hard. But the best part is, once you start building discipline, you start to feel it change you. Not in some grand, obvious way, but in the small things. Like being able to sit down and focus when your mind wants to scatter. Or being able to look in the mirror and see someone you actually respect because you know you've done the work. Discipline isn't a destination, it's a journey. And it's a journey that comes with a kind of power that's hard to find anywhere else. The truth is, discipline is everything. Without it, you're just a leaf blowing in the wind, tossed around by whatever comes your way. But with it, you're like a tree, rooted and unshakable, no matter how hard the storm blows. That's the weight of discipline. It's the power to stand strong, the power to grow, and the power to be the best version of yourself, even on the hardest days. The struggle against comfort. If you've ever tried to break a bad habit or build a new one, you know the most significant obstacle isn't the lack of ability, it's the sheer, seductive pull of comfort. Comfort is a warm blanket on a cold night, a couch calling your name after a long day. It's the easy choice, the path of least resistance. And who doesn't want to take the easy path, right? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something deeply unsettling. Comfort is not a friend, it's a trap. It lures you into thinking everything is fine when, in reality, you're stagnating. You're not growing, you're not improving, you're just existing. I used to think, why make things harder on myself? Life is already tough enough. But that's the kicker, life doesn't get easier, and if you're always avoiding discomfort, you'll never get any stronger. You'll never change. If anything, you'll get weaker. Think about it, how many of us are willing to fight for something when it requires us to step out of our comfy zone? When it requires sweat, frustration, and sometimes, straight-up exhaustion. It's easy to say, oh, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll get serious next week. But that's just another layer of comfort, another excuse that feels good in the moment but kills your progress in the long run. If you think about it, everything worthwhile requires discomfort. Every step forward, every breakthrough, happens because we're willing to sit in the discomfort. That's the irony, comfort is the enemy of progress. Let me tell you something, though, comfort isn't just about physical rest. It's also mental and emotional. When was the last time you pushed yourself to think differently, to really stretch your mind? We live in a world of distractions, where it's easier than ever to numb ourselves with scrolling through social media or zoning out in front of a screen. But it takes real discipline to stop, to pause, and to confront your own thoughts. It's far too easy to live on autopilot, but autopilot never takes you to the life you want. And autopilot, my friend, thrives in comfort. It doesn't challenge you, it holds you back. There's a certain magic that happens when you get uncomfortable. It's like a switch flips, and all of a sudden, you start thinking, okay, this is hard, but I can do this. I have to do this. And that's where growth happens, when you decide to keep going, even when you don't feel like it, even when the world seems to be whispering, just stay in bed for 5 more minutes. In those moments, discipline is the only thing that gets you out of the trap. It's what makes you rise and keep fighting. Now, I know this doesn't sound like a fun story, and in some ways, it's not. But if you want to build power, if you want to become something greater, you can't shy away from discomfort. You can't make excuses for taking the easy route. It's not just about getting fit or achieving something superficial. It's about the mental and emotional muscle you build by refusing to stay in your comfort zone. When you make a habit of doing things that challenge you, you stop being afraid of discomfort, and instead, you start to crave it. You look for it, because you know that's where the magic happens. I can tell you, without a doubt, that the most uncomfortable moments of my life were the ones that shaped me the most. Sure, they sucked in the moment. But looking back, I can see the tremendous value in them. Those times when I pushed through, when I didn't let myself back down, when I kept walking even though my legs were sore and my mind was screaming for rest, those are the moments that matter. Not the easy ones. Not the ones where I gave in to comfort and complacency. So, here's the question, are you going to keep choosing comfort? Or are you going to step into discomfort and let it change you? The choice is yours. But if you want to grow, if you want power, you have to make that decision every single day. Comfort doesn't give you the life you want. Discipline does. Power as a form of love. There's a saying that, love is the most powerful force in the world, but what does that really mean? Most people think of love as a warm, gentle feeling, something soft, nurturing, and sweet. And sure, love can be all of those things. But let's talk about the kind of love that doesn't get enough attention, the kind of love that is raw, unrelenting, and, honestly, hard to understand. The kind of love that makes you wake up at 5 a.m. to grind, even when every fiber of your body screams for more sleep. The kind of love that pushes you to be better every single day, even when no one is looking. This is the love that discipline represents. When you show up for yourself day after day, when you make choices that are hard but necessary, that's love. It's tough love. It's the kind of love that demands more from you than you think you're capable of giving, but in doing so, it transforms you. It doesn't wait for you to feel good before it shows up, it makes you face your flaws, your weaknesses, and your laziness, and then it forces you to rise above them. I think a lot of people get this twisted. They assume that love is only about making people feel comfortable, cared for, or happy in the moment. But love, in its truest form, is about growth. It's about pushing someone, yourself, or someone else, towards their best version. And sometimes, that requires hard choices, painful lessons, and plenty of sacrifice. Real love doesn't coddle you, it challenges you. It's the discipline that shapes you into someone who can give love in the fullest, most effective way. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, that sounds cold, not loving. But here's the thing, discipline doesn't mean you're harsh or unkind. It means you care enough to help someone reach their potential, even if that means they'll face discomfort along the way. It's the love that makes you get up and work when you'd rather scroll through your phone. It's the love that drives you to say no to bad habits, to unhealthy patterns, even though they're easier and more comforting. It's the love that keeps pushing you to evolve, even when everything around you tells you to stay the same. If you've ever had someone in your life push you to be better, whether it was a coach, a mentor, or even a tough love friend, you know that it wasn't always fun. But looking back, you can probably see that it was exactly what you needed. You might have hated it in the moment, but that discomfort, that was love. And that's the real power of discipline. It's love in the form of power. It's the power that makes you believe in yourself when you don't feel capable. It's the strength to keep going, even when you want to quit. And that's the power that helps you grow into someone who can truly love others in the most profound way. Think about the people who have shaped your life the most, those who didn't just tell you what you wanted to hear, but who pushed you to become something greater. They didn't do it to make you feel good in the moment. They did it because they believed in you, and they knew you were capable of more than you gave yourself credit for. That's the kind of love I'm talking about. This is the love that discipline gives. It's a love that, at first glance, may seem harsh, but it's the kind of love that builds you up from the inside out. It strengthens your mind, your body, and your spirit. And when you start to give that kind of love to yourself, when you start to show up with discipline day after day, you unlock a level of power that you never thought was possible. So don't mistake discipline for something cold or unloving. It's the opposite. It's the highest form of love you can give yourself. It's the love that transforms, the love that challenges, and the love that elevates you to your best self. The silent forces that shape us. Have you ever noticed how much of our lives are controlled by invisible forces? It's not just the big things like our jobs, relationships, or money. No, I'm talking about the small, silent forces that operate behind the scenes, the things we don't always notice but that have the biggest impact on who we are and how we live. These forces are often the habits we've built over time, the ones that don't scream for attention, but that shape our lives in ways we don't realize. Take a moment and think about your morning routine. Do you wake up and immediately check your phone? Or do you stretch, drink water, and set an intention for the day? Whether you realize it or not, these habits, the things you do without thinking, are powerful. They set the tone for your entire day, and in turn, your entire life. This is the silent power of routine. Now, routines can be great when they're built on good habits. They provide structure, and structure provides freedom. But what happens when your routines are based on bad habits? What happens when your first instinct in the morning is to reach for your phone to check social media, rather than checking in with yourself or setting your intentions for the day? Over time, these seemingly insignificant choices start to dictate the quality of your life. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your power. We like to think of ourselves as free, independent thinkers. And we are, at least, in theory. But most of us are slaves to our routines. We're not fully aware of how much they control our thoughts, our actions, and even our emotions. You can see it in the way we react to situations. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instantly you're angry. Someone posts something online that you disagree with, and you're ready to fire back with a sharp retort. This is the result of a life built on reactive habits. Your body, your mind, everything you do, is an automatic response to things that happen around you. The irony here is that we think we're in control. We think we're making choices, but many of those choices are just reactions to what has already been ingrained in us. And that's where discipline comes in. Discipline isn't about fighting the big, loud forces. It's about taking control of the silent ones, the ones that operate underneath the surface, the ones that you don't even know are there. Discipline is about taking a step back and saying, I am in charge of how I respond to this. It's about creating new routines that serve you, not the ones that keep you stuck in old patterns. Let me give you an example. I used to start my day with the classic routine of waking up and immediately grabbing my phone. Check the notifications, scroll through social media, and dive into the digital world before my feet even hit the floor. And I'd wonder why I felt disconnected and frustrated all day. It was because I was letting these tiny, automatic decisions shape my entire reality. The phone was the silent force I didn't realize was controlling me. It wasn't empowering me, it was draining me. But when I decided to flip the script and start my morning with something different, everything changed. I replaced the phone with a short meditation. I swapped social media for journaling. And you know what? It didn't happen overnight. It took discipline to build new habits, to force myself to wake up earlier, to make time for things that were difficult but meaningful. But over time, that change in routine started to compound. The new silent forces I was putting in place, the habits, the morning rituals, became the ones that shaped my life for the better. The point is this: your life isn't shaped just by the big decisions. It's shaped by the small, daily choices you make. It's shaped by the routines you've set in place, whether you're aware of them or not. And if you want to change your life, you don't have to tackle everything at once. Start with the small stuff. Start with the quiet forces that you can control. When you take charge of those, you'll see the bigger changes start to follow. The funny thing is, most of us are looking for the big, dramatic moments that will change everything. We wait for the big breakthrough or the lightning bolt of inspiration. But real change, real power, it's in the small, silent shifts. The things you do without thinking that eventually add up to something monumental. And the best part is, you have the power to control those shifts. You can choose your habits. You can choose your routines. And in doing so, you can choose who you become. The fallacy of instant gratification. Let's talk about the thing that most people are guilty of: instant gratification. It's so ingrained in our culture that we don't even notice how often we fall into its trap. We want what we want, and we want it now. Whether it's food, entertainment, social approval, or even success, there's this idea that we should be able to get it immediately. It's the age of instant everything: next-day delivery, fast food, social media likes, streaming on demand. But here's the truth: instant gratification is a lie. A very convincing lie, but a lie nonetheless. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with enjoying a little treat now and then, or indulging in a quick convenience. But when it becomes the foundation of how we approach life, it gets dangerous. We live in a society that thrives on quick fixes, and that mindset seeps into everything. People think they should be able to get in shape in 2 weeks, or build a business in a month, or earn respect and admiration overnight. And it's not their fault. This culture of instant results is everywhere. Here's the problem: that instant satisfaction doesn't last. It's a temporary high, a quick burst of excitement, and then, it's gone. It doesn't stick. If you've ever been on a diet that promises to shed 20 pounds in a week, you know what I mean. Or tried to binge a series in one sitting and felt empty after. The same goes for anything that promises quick results without the work. Sure, you'll feel good in a moment, but what happens when it's over? You're back to square one, feeling unsatisfied, and now you're craving that quick fix again. Let's be honest, real success doesn't come from quick wins or chasing every impulse. It's built through patience, discipline, vision. The people who rise to the top, they're the ones who can say, "I'll wait. I'll work. I'll sacrifice comfort today for freedom tomorrow." They don't trade long-term impact for short-term dopamine. They invest, day by day, in their future selves. That's not easy. But that's what makes it powerful. And don't get me started on the hustle culture. The idea that you should be grinding 24/7, posting every hour, and always striving for more. It's like everyone's been tricked into thinking that success is a sprint, not a marathon. So, we race ahead, desperate for that moment when we make it. We burn ourselves out in the process, because we can't sustain that level of intensity forever. But what if we slowed down? What if we took the time to focus on the long term, to build something that would last? That's when the magic happens. Now, I'm not saying that ambition is bad or that you should never go after what you want. Far from it. I'm just saying that the way we've been taught to approach success, fast, immediate, and without patience, isn't the answer. It's a trap that keeps us from ever really enjoying the journey. And the journey? That's where the real value lies. It's not just about the destination, it's about the growth, the lessons, and the experiences you gain along the way. This is where discipline comes in. Discipline is what helps you push through the tough times, even when you don't see the results right away. It's the ability to keep going when you're not getting instant rewards. Because, let's face it, nothing worth having ever comes easily or quickly. So, you have to learn to be okay with the discomfort of waiting. You have to build the mental toughness to handle the fact that success takes time. And you have to be willing to sacrifice those small, fleeting pleasures for the big, lasting ones. When I look back at the things I've achieved, I don't remember the moments of instant gratification. I don't remember the easy wins or the things that came quickly. What I remember are the long days of hard work, the small victories that added up over time, and the moments when I chose to keep going, even when I wasn't seeing the immediate results. That's where the real satisfaction comes from. It's the satisfaction of knowing that the work you put in today will pay off tomorrow. So, if you find yourself tempted by the allure of instant gratification, take a step back. Think about the bigger picture. Real success doesn't happen overnight, and that's okay. You don't need to race ahead. You don't need to burn out. Just focus on the journey, take it one step at a time, and let discipline guide you. That's where the real rewards lie. Discipline in the face of failure. Failure. It's a word we all fear, but let's be honest here, it's not the word itself that we're scared of. It's what failure represents. It represents the possibility that we might not be good enough, that we might have messed up in front of others, or, worse, that we might have wasted all our efforts for nothing. It's uncomfortable, to say the least. But the truth is, failure is not only inevitable, it's essential. The real question is, how do you deal with failure when it inevitably comes knocking on your door? And more importantly, how does discipline fit into all of this? When we talk about discipline, we're often thinking about the hard work, the grinding, the never-give-up mentality. And that's true, but discipline isn't just about pushing forward when things are going well. Discipline is about showing up for yourself when everything falls apart. It's about getting up after you've been knocked down, and trying again, even when you don't want to. It's about keeping your head down and staying focused on the goal, even when you've failed once, twice, or 100 times. You see, failure doesn't have to be the end of the road. In fact, it can be the start of something bigger. Every successful person has faced failure, sometimes in big ways. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that the successful ones never fail. No, the difference is that they don't let failure stop them. They don't let it define them. They use it as fuel to keep going, as proof that they're on the right track, because failure is simply a lesson in disguise. It's feedback. It's the universe telling you, hey, try something else. That didn't work, but here's your chance to do it better next time. The danger comes when we let failure break us, when we allow it to convince us that we're not worthy or capable. That's when we give up. That's when we stop trying. That's when we let failure dictate our future. But what if, instead of seeing failure as a wall, we saw it as a stepping stone? What if we realized that each failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to sharpen our skills, and to become more resilient? I'll be the first to admit, it's hard. It's so much easier to quit, to throw in the towel, and say, I tried my best, but it wasn't meant to be. It's easy to sit in the comfort of defeat and let that be the end of it. But that's not discipline. Discipline is saying, I'm not done yet. It's showing up the next day, even when you're feeling discouraged. It's trying again, even when you're not sure it's going to work. It's pushing forward when you've failed and feeling that little voice inside your head say, maybe next time will be the one that works. You don't build true power by avoiding failure. You build it by walking through it, over and over again. You don't get stronger by never failing, you get stronger by failing and getting back up, each and every time. The most successful people in history failed far more times than they succeeded. But they kept going. They kept trying. They kept disciplining themselves to push forward, despite the setbacks. But it's not just about trying harder. It's about trying smarter. It's about looking at each failure and asking yourself, what did I learn from this? How can I do it differently next time? Failure is the perfect opportunity to reflect, to adjust your strategy, and to grow. And when you're disciplined enough to approach failure with this mindset, you begin to understand that it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to embrace. So the next time failure comes knocking, and believe me, it will, don't run from it. Don't let it defeat you. Stand tall, face it head on, and let it teach you. Let it show you where you need to improve. Let it push you to be better. And when you're ready, use that lesson to come back stronger. That's the true power of discipline. Discipline is not about avoiding failure. It's about thriving because of it. The unseen costs of success. Ah, success. Everyone wants it, right? It's the glittering prize at the end of the long, dark tunnel. We see the rich, the famous, the influential people out there, living their best lives. We hear the stories of overnight success and think, why not me? We see them sitting in penthouses, on private jets, or walking across red carpets. Success looks so shiny from the outside. But here's the thing, what you see is only the surface. You don't see the unseen costs, the hidden sacrifices, the quiet, invisible trade-offs that success demands. People like to think of success as a fairy tale ending, something that happens when you reach the top. But success is not a moment. It's a long journey, and every step along the way comes at a price. And it's not always a price you can see coming. That's the catch. You might think you're buying your dream life, but you don't realize that the price tag includes sleepless nights, missed birthdays, lost relationships, and sometimes, a piece of your soul. You don't realize that the higher you climb, the more lonely it gets. You might even have to sacrifice parts of yourself along the way. Let's talk about time. You only have so much of it, and when you're chasing success, time becomes the most precious commodity you have. The people who reached the top didn't get there by sitting around watching Netflix or hanging out with friends every weekend. They got there by pouring every ounce of their energy into their work, sometimes at the cost of their personal lives. The late nights, the endless emails, the constant pressure to perform, it all eats into the time you could have spent doing other things. And here's the thing, you don't always notice it until it's too late. I'll be honest with you, I've made those sacrifices. The late nights and the weekends spent working when I should have been relaxing. And while it paid off in some ways, my work has led me to places I never dreamed possible, it also cost me. It cost me time with family, time with friends, time to just be present in the moment. There's always that feeling of, I'll catch up on it later, but you never really do. The cost of success is the time you can't get back. Then there's the emotional cost. The pressure to succeed can be crushing. You have to constantly prove yourself, constantly hustle, constantly give more than what you're capable of. At some point, it stops being about the passion you once had and starts becoming about survival. You're so focused on making sure everything works that you forget why you started in the first place. You forget to enjoy the journey. And that's when burnout sets in. When success is no longer something you enjoy, but something you have to maintain, that's when the true cost shows up. You start asking yourself, is it worth it? What am I really sacrificing for this? But the emotional cost of success doesn't just affect you. It affects those around you. When you're focused solely on your goals, you might inadvertently shut out the people who matter most. Relationships can suffer, friendships can fade, and the people who love you can feel neglected. Sometimes, we're so fixated on success that we forget about the people who supported us in the beginning. We take them for granted, and when they're no longer there, we realize too late that success isn't as sweet without those meaningful connections. What's surprising is this: even with all it demands, success still feels meaningful. It doesn't erase the pain or the sacrifices, but it reframes them. Over time, the struggles that once felt overwhelming begin to feel like stepping stones. You realize that the journey, the hard, messy, uncertain journey, was shaping you all along. And somehow, all that you gave up, it led you somewhere deeper than you expected. The trick, though, is to recognize those costs along the way and not be blindsided by them. Success is great, but it's not everything. The price you pay for it doesn't always feel like a sacrifice in the moment. But over time, you'll begin to notice what you've lost. And it's up to you to decide whether the cost was worth it. The lesson here isn't about avoiding success. It's about being mindful of the cost and ensuring that the price you're paying is one you're willing to pay. Success will cost you something, it's inevitable. But that doesn't mean you should let it cost you everything. Building resilience through adversity. There's a certain beauty in resilience. It's not flashy, and it doesn't come with a spotlight, but it's the quiet strength that carries you through life's toughest moments. We all face adversity at some point in our lives. Whether it's the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or a personal failure, adversity is unavoidable. But what makes some people bounce back from these challenges, while others stay stuck in the pain, unable to move forward? It's resilience. The ability to keep going, no matter how hard life gets. I used to think that resilience was something you were either born with or you weren't. That it was a characteristic that you either had in abundance or lacked entirely. But over time, I realized that resilience is something you can build. It's not a trait you inherit, it's a skill you develop. And the best part is, it's forged in the fires of adversity. The more challenges you face, the stronger your resilience becomes. Think about it this way: when you go to the gym to build muscle, you're actually tearing your muscles down so that they can rebuild stronger. The same principle applies to life. When you go through hard times, you're not being broken, you're being reformed. Adversity is your training ground. It's the tough workout that, while painful in the moment, leaves you stronger and more capable. It's the fire that tempers you. Building resilience isn't easy. It requires discipline, because the natural instinct when things get tough is to give up. It's much easier to throw in the towel and retreat to the comfort zone. But discipline is the muscle that keeps you moving forward, even when everything inside you wants to stop. It's the force that makes you say, "I'm not done yet," even when the road ahead seems insurmountable. Discipline is what pushes you to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when the path is unclear. I remember a time when I was facing a huge challenge in my life. Everything seemed to be going wrong, work was a mess, personal relationships were strained, and I felt like I was failing in every area. There was a part of me that wanted to curl up and forget about it all. I wanted to quit. But then I remembered something: resilience isn't about never feeling the pain, it's about continuing despite the pain. It's about not letting the weight of the world crush you. And that realization changed everything for me. I started to approach adversity differently. Instead of seeing it as something to be feared or avoided, I began to see it as a gift. It was an opportunity to become stronger, to learn, to grow. Every time I faced a setback, I reminded myself that it was building my resilience. Every failure, every struggle, was an opportunity to improve. And with time, I started to see the results. I became more confident, more capable, and more determined to tackle whatever came my way. Let's get one thing straight: resilience isn't pretending things are okay. It's looking the pain in the face and saying, "You won't stop me." It's showing up, even when everything in you wants to shut down. The strongest people aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who keep moving through it. Who get knocked down, and get back up louder. Resilience also requires a certain level of self-compassion. You can't build resilience by being hard on yourself every time you fall. You have to be kind to yourself, give yourself permission to fail, and understand that failure doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're learning. The key is to get back up and keep going. That's what makes you stronger. As you go through life, you'll face countless challenges. Some of them will knock you down. Some will make you question everything. But with resilience, you can weather any storm. And the best part? You'll come out the other side stronger than you were before. Resilience is the tool that helps you turn adversity into strength, and discipline is the force that helps you build that strength every single day. The truth is, life isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about learning to thrive despite it. And when you build resilience, you build a foundation that can withstand anything life throws your way. So don't shy away from the challenges. Embrace them. Let them shape you, mold you, and turn you into someone who can face anything with confidence. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back, it's about coming back stronger. The influence of self-talk. You've probably heard someone say, "You are your own worst enemy." And if you've ever had a moment of self-doubt or insecurity, you'll understand why. Your inner voice, the one that speaks to you when no one else is around, can be your greatest ally, or your worst enemy. The way you talk to yourself has more power than you can imagine. It shapes your reality, influences your actions, and ultimately determines the direction of your life. But here's the twist, most of us don't even realize how toxic our self-talk can be. When I started paying attention to the things I was telling myself, I realized just how negative and critical I was. "You're not good enough. This is too hard. You'll never make it." These weren't just passing thoughts, they were the foundation of my internal dialogue. And without realizing it, these thoughts were guiding my decisions and shaping my behavior. They were holding me back, keeping me from reaching my potential, and feeding my fears instead of my strengths. We all have that little voice in our heads, but the question is, what are you letting it say? Most of us have been conditioned to listen to the negative side of our inner dialogue. We've been taught to focus on what's wrong, what we lack, and what we can't do, rather than what we're capable of achieving. And the more you listen to that voice, the more it becomes the truth. If you tell yourself you can't do something long enough, eventually you'll believe it. If you tell yourself that you're not good enough or smart enough, you'll start to act like it. Your self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is where discipline comes in. Because discipline is not just about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do, it's about controlling that inner voice. It's about rewriting the script that plays in your head every day. When you become disciplined in your thoughts, when you learn to challenge the negative talk, you take back your power. You don't let the voice in your head dictate your reality. Instead, you take control of it, replacing it with thoughts that empower you, encourage you, and drive you to do better. I'll be the first to admit, this isn't easy. The negative voice in your head can feel so loud, so convincing. But here's the trick, you don't have to believe everything it says. Just because that voice tells you that you're not capable doesn't mean it's true. You have the power to shut it down. You can tell yourself, "No, that's not the truth. I am capable. I am enough. I can do this." In fact, the more you challenge that voice, the weaker it becomes. Every time you refuse to listen to the negativity, you build a stronger, more confident mindset. You begin to see yourself not as someone who is limited by their circumstances, but as someone who can overcome anything. You start to believe that you are capable of achieving greatness, no matter what obstacles stand in your way. But here's where it gets even better, when you change your self-talk, you change the way you show up in the world. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough, you'll start acting like you're not good enough. But if you tell yourself that you are worthy of success, that you are capable of handling challenges, you'll start acting accordingly. Your actions will follow your beliefs, and those beliefs will create the reality you live in. One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to become aware of your self-talk. Start noticing the things you say to yourself, especially when you're facing a challenge or a setback. Are you being kind to yourself, or are you beating yourself up? Are you encouraging yourself to keep going, or are you letting fear and doubt take over? The moment you become aware of your inner dialogue, you gain the power to change it. Self-talk is the foundation of self-discipline. The more you discipline your thoughts, the more you discipline your actions. And the more disciplined your actions become, the closer you get to achieving your goals. You can't separate your thoughts from your reality. If you want to change your life, you have to start with the way you talk to yourself. You have to choose to be your own biggest cheerleader, not your harshest critic. Remember, discipline starts in the mind. When you master your thoughts, everything else will follow. The power to change your life is in your hands, and it starts with the voice inside your head. So, the next time that voice starts telling you what you can't do, shut it down. Replace it with the voice that tells you, I can. I will. I am capable. And watch how your life begins to transform. Of course, there will be times when you slip up, when distractions win out. And that's okay. The key isn't to be perfect, but to be consistent. The more you practice focus, the more natural it becomes to stay on task, and the more you'll accomplish in less time. It's about creating momentum, building the habit, and making it easier for your brain to stay engaged. Another powerful tool for focus is the practice of mindfulness. When you're truly present in the moment, when you're focused on what you're doing rather than thinking about the past or future, your productivity skyrockets. Mindfulness helps you cut through the noise, quiet your racing thoughts, and allow you to fully immerse yourself in whatever you're doing. It's discipline in its most concentrated form, being completely aware of what's happening now, without distractions. Focus isn't just about working harder or longer. It's about working smarter. It's about cutting through the clutter, staying present, and being disciplined enough to ignore everything that isn't serving your goal. When you master focus, you not only get more done, but you also gain a sense of calm and control over your day. You stop feeling scattered and overwhelmed because your mind is no longer racing in 100 different directions. When I started practicing real focus, it was like a light bulb went off. It's not that I suddenly had more time, it's that I was able to use the time I had more effectively. And as I continued to refine my ability to focus, I began to realize how much of my success came down to this one skill. Focus is the secret weapon that allows you to push through the mundane, stay committed to your goals, and see them through to completion. Discipline without focus is like trying to drive a car without steering, you're just going in circles. But discipline with focus? That's how you reach your destination. So, if you want to achieve greatness, start with your focus. Make it your top priority. Protect it fiercely, and don't let anything distract you from what matters most. With enough practice, focus becomes second nature, and it will carry you farther than you ever imagined. Sacrifices of time and energy. The most sacred commodity we have is time, yet it's also the most easily squandered. We often take it for granted, thinking there will always be more of it. We fill our days with distractions, with things that don't really matter, and before we know it, time slips away, leaving us with regrets over the things we didn't accomplish. But the truth is, to achieve anything of significance in life, you have to sacrifice time. Not just any time, but your most precious, productive time, the time that could have been spent on something else, something that isn't contributing to your success. This is one of the toughest truths to swallow. In the pursuit of success, discipline, and growth, you have to make choices. You have to decide what matters and what doesn't. You have to be willing to say no to things that might feel good in the moment but ultimately drain your energy or distract you from your path. Time is finite, and when you're serious about achieving something, you realize that you can't afford to waste it. Let's talk about energy, too. Because time and energy are tightly connected. You can't pour all your time into something without eventually running out of energy. You can't work non-stop, burning the candle at both ends, and expect to maintain the same level of productivity forever. In fact, sacrificing your energy can be just as dangerous as sacrificing your time. If you're constantly draining yourself without replenishing your energy, you'll burn out. And when you burn out, all your efforts, all your discipline, all your sacrifices, will be for nothing. Here's the hard part, the sacrifices of time and energy don't always feel like sacrifices in the moment. Sometimes, when you're in the thick of it, it feels like you're just doing what you need to do. But as the days and weeks pile up, you start to feel the toll. The missed social gatherings, the weekends spent working, the late nights staring at your laptop, those moments start to add up. And if you're not careful, they can begin to erode your sense of balance, your well-being, and your happiness. I've had those moments. I've spent too much time on a project, working until I was physically exhausted, sacrificing everything for the goal. And while I don't regret those moments, the growth, the lessons, the feeling of accomplishment, they do come with their costs. Time away from family. Energy that could have been spent nurturing relationships. Mental and physical exhaustion that could have been avoided with better balance. Let's be real, sacrifice isn't optional if you're chasing something great. It's the entry fee for doing work that matters. You'll lose sleep. Miss parties. Say no when it's easier to say yes. That's the cost of focus. But every time you choose the goal over the distraction, you're casting a vote for your future. And those small sacrifices, they're how you build something extraordinary. The trick is to recognize when these sacrifices are necessary and when they're becoming self-destructive. It's all about balance. There's a fine line between giving everything for a goal and losing yourself in the process. When your sacrifices are aligned with your goals, and you know that every minute and every ounce of energy is being put towards something meaningful, those sacrifices feel worth it. But when those sacrifices start to chip away at your happiness, your relationships, or your health, it's time to reassess. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that sacrificing your time and energy for the right reasons, at the right times, can accelerate your progress. But it's also important to recognize that these sacrifices are temporary. They should be made with purpose. When you're in the grind, it's easy to forget that you don't have to live like this forever. Success requires sacrifices in the short term, but in the long term, it's about finding a rhythm that allows you to sustain your efforts without sacrificing everything else. So, as you move forward in your journey, keep this in mind: you have to choose where to invest your time and energy. You can't do everything. You can't be everywhere. And you can't please everyone. The discipline comes in when you decide where to direct your focus and when you choose to protect your energy for the things that matter most. Success doesn't require all of you, it just requires the best of you, at the right time, for the right goals. And don't forget, success isn't just about working harder and longer. It's about working smart. It's about aligning your energy with your vision, balancing the sacrifices you make, and knowing when to step back and recharge. Discipline is important, but so is self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you won't be able to sustain the long haul. The complexity of true leadership. Leadership is one of those things we all think we understand. We hear about it in books, podcasts, and speeches, but true leadership is far more complex than the glossy version that's often portrayed. The easy definition of leadership involves a person at the front, directing the group, telling everyone what to do. But in reality, true leadership is a delicate balance. It requires not just the ability to lead others, but to serve them, to inspire them, and to carry the responsibility of guiding them while still remaining connected to the people you lead. It's about balance, compassion, and strength all rolled into one. The first thing to understand about leadership is that it's not about being the loudest person in the room or the one with the most opinions. It's about being the person who understands when to step back and listen. A good leader doesn't always have the answers, they know how to ask the right questions, listen to feedback, and adapt. They have the ability to make tough decisions, but they also know when those decisions are best made in consultation with others. Leadership isn't about telling people what to do, it's about guiding them, empowering them to make their own choices, and inspiring them to follow through. I used to think that leadership was all about having control, about knowing what's right and leading people from the front. But over time, I've realized that control is an illusion. True leaders don't seek control over others, they seek control over themselves. They have the discipline to stay calm, the focus to make thoughtful decisions, and the emotional intelligence to guide others through difficult times. That's where the power of discipline comes into play. Leadership isn't just about what you do in the moment, it's about how you prepare yourself, how you build your own strength and resilience so you can support others effectively. There's a fascinating complexity in leadership when it comes to the need for empathy. You can be the most organized, driven person in the room, but if you don't care about the people around you, your leadership will fall flat. People want to follow someone who understands them, who listens to them, and who values their contributions. A great leader connects with people on a human level, not just a professional one. This doesn't mean that leadership is about being a friend to everyone, it's about recognizing the humanity in the people you lead, understanding their needs, and helping them grow. It's about knowing when to push, when to encourage, and when to pull back. This is where the real challenge of leadership lies, balancing strength with compassion. Leaders often have to make difficult decisions that may not be popular or easy. But the true test of leadership is not just in making decisions but in how those decisions are made, and how they impact the people you lead. It's about making the tough call while still considering the well-being of the team. And this takes a level of emotional discipline. The ability to stay calm in a crisis, the ability to make decisions that may cause short-term discomfort for long-term benefit, and the ability to keep moving forward, no matter how challenging the path ahead. In many ways, leadership is a continuous act of self-discipline. You're constantly learning, growing, and adjusting based on the needs of the people you lead and the challenges that arise. You have to be disciplined enough to hold yourself accountable, to reflect on your actions, and to make adjustments where necessary. But you also need to be flexible enough to adapt to the unique needs of each person and each situation. A leader who lacks flexibility becomes rigid and disconnected, and that can lead to frustration and disengagement. A leader who lacks discipline becomes overwhelmed and scattered, unable to effectively manage the responsibilities they've taken on. At the heart of true leadership lies a willingness to serve, to guide, and to protect the people you lead. It's not about power, it's about responsibility. And that responsibility comes with its own sacrifices. You're constantly putting the needs of others before your own, and that can be exhausting. But it's also incredibly rewarding. True leadership isn't easy, and it isn't always glamorous. But when you lead with discipline, with focus, and with care for those around you, it has a profound and lasting impact. I've learned that leadership isn't about doing everything yourself or holding everything together. It's about creating an environment where others can thrive, where everyone is empowered to bring their best to the table. It's about building trust, being honest, and being willing to acknowledge your own limitations. True leaders are not infallible, they're human. And the best leaders recognize that and use their discipline to be the best version of themselves, and for others. The complexity of leadership is in knowing when to lead from the front and when to lead from behind, when to take charge and when to step aside. It's about mastering the delicate art of balancing strength with compassion, discipline with flexibility, and authority with humility. True leadership isn't about being perfect, it's about being present, being disciplined, and being ready to serve when needed. The dangers of self-reliance. Self-reliance. It's a buzzword we hear all the time. Be independent, they say. Do it yourself, they urge. And sure, there's something incredibly empowering about being able to handle things on your own. But let's not fool ourselves, there's a dark side to self-reliance that no one really talks about. The myth of being completely self-sufficient, of not needing anyone else, can be just as dangerous as the alternative. Yes, discipline and self-reliance are important, but they shouldn't come at the cost of your mental health, relationships, or overall well-being. There's a fine line between being independent and isolating yourself. I've fallen into this trap myself. I thought that asking for help was a sign of weakness, that if I couldn't do something on my own, I wasn't truly disciplined or strong. The thing is, when you buy into this narrative, you start to close yourself off from others, and that's where the danger lies. We were never meant to go through life alone. We need people, friends, family, mentors, colleagues, even strangers who can offer us perspectives we may not have considered. But if you're too focused on self-reliance, you start to believe that needing others is a flaw, not a strength. Self-reliance can lead to a kind of isolation that's almost imperceptible at first. It starts with small things, skipping social events because you feel like you can handle it on your own, avoiding collaboration because you believe you're the only one who can get the job done right. Over time, this isolation becomes a habit, and you begin to see the world as something you have to conquer alone. But here's the truth, isolation is not strength. It's a weakness in disguise. The more you isolate yourself, the less likely you are to grow in the ways that matter most. When you're too wrapped up in doing everything yourself, you stop seeing the bigger picture. You stop recognizing the value in teamwork, collaboration, and shared wisdom. Now, I'm not saying that independence isn't important. It absolutely is. You should be able to rely on yourself when it matters. But that doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. And here's the thing I learned the hard way, self-reliance doesn't mean you never ask for help, it means you know when to ask. It means having the discipline to recognize when you're in over your head and being humble enough to seek support. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. The most disciplined, successful people know their limits. They know when they can push through on their own and when they need to bring in others to help. The danger of absolute self-reliance is that it can lead to burnout. I've seen it happen, both to myself and to others. You push and push, thinking that if you work hard enough, if you grind long enough, you can carry everything on your shoulders. But eventually, that weight catches up with you. You might think you're being strong, but in reality, you're setting yourself up for exhaustion, frustration, and, ultimately, failure. When you don't allow yourself to lean on others, you're neglecting a crucial part of the growth process. It's through others, whether through collaboration, mentorship, or even friendship, that we expand our perspectives and grow in ways that we can't do on our own. True strength lies in knowing that you don't have to have all the answers. It's about understanding that there's power in vulnerability. It's the willingness to admit that you can't do everything by yourself, and that asking for help is not only okay, it's necessary for long-term success. Collaboration is not a compromise of your discipline, it's an enhancement of it. Working together, learning from others, and building on each other's strengths is where the real magic happens. In the end, the danger of self-reliance isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and relational. When you put all your energy into being self-sufficient, you start to lose sight of the human connections that make life worthwhile. You start to forget that success isn't just about what you accomplish on your own. It's about how you share that success, how you build others up along the way, and how you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to accept help when it's needed. The truth is, no one achieves greatness alone. The greatest leaders, the most successful entrepreneurs, and the happiest people all understand this fundamental truth: they didn't get there by doing everything themselves. They got there by surrounding themselves with the right people, by building strong relationships, and by learning from others who brought their unique strengths to the table. Self-reliance is powerful, but it's only part of the equation. True power comes when you balance it with collaboration, connection, and the ability to ask for help when you need it. So the next time you feel the urge to do everything alone, take a step back and ask yourself, is this really necessary? Could someone else help me? Is there strength in vulnerability? Because in my experience, asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger, more capable, and more disciplined. The power of consistency. Consistency is one of those words that's often tossed around as if it's simple and easy. But anyone who's ever tried to stick to a routine, build a habit, or chase a long-term goal knows that consistency is anything but easy. It's one of the most powerful forces you can harness in your life, but it's also one of the most demanding. The secret to achieving anything meaningful isn't about being perfect or constantly grinding, it's about showing up, day after day, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when the progress is slower than you'd like. I'm going to be honest, the first few weeks of any new project or habit are always the hardest. The excitement is high at the beginning, and everything feels possible. But then, the novelty wears off, and you're left with the boring, unglamorous work of simply showing up. That's when most people fall off. They expect immediate results, immediate change, and when those things don't materialize, they lose motivation. But here's the thing about consistency: it doesn't promise instant results. What it promises is progress over time. Slow, steady, and unsexy progress. Think about the most successful people in any field. Whether it's sports, business, or personal development, one thing they all have in common is that they showed up consistently. They didn't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, or the perfect inspiration. They just kept going, day after day, even when the work felt mundane, even when they didn't feel like it. Consistency is what allows you to make progress when motivation fades, and it's what helps you build the momentum that carries you through even the hardest times. The problem is that we're living in an era of instant gratification. We want things fast, and we want them now. Social media, fast food, on-demand entertainment, it all feeds into this need for quick rewards. But the most meaningful things in life don't happen overnight. It's the small, consistent actions you take every day that compound over time to create something extraordinary. And this is where discipline comes in. Discipline is what keeps you on track when the initial excitement fades, when things get tough, and when your motivation dips. I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to quit something because the results weren't coming fast enough. But the turning point comes when you realize that the results don't matter as much as the process. It's about showing up, no matter how small the progress seems. It's about making the effort each day, knowing that, even if it's just a little bit, you're moving forward. The days might feel like they're blending together, and the progress might seem invisible, but trust me, each time you show up, you're reinforcing the habit, you're strengthening your discipline, and you're building a foundation that will eventually lead to success. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that consistency isn't about doing the same thing every single day and never taking a break. It's about being disciplined enough to keep going, even on the days when you'd rather not. It's about understanding that rest and recovery are part of the process. Sometimes, consistency means knowing when to step back, recharge, and then get back at it with even more focus and energy. But there's a beauty in this daily grind. It's not about waiting for some big breakthrough moment. It's about the small wins, the daily habits, the little progressions that, over time, accumulate into something far greater than you could have imagined. Consistency teaches you patience, persistence, and resilience. It teaches you that success is not a result of one big leap, but of countless small steps, taken in the right direction, day after day. Think about the things you've done consistently in your life. Whether it's exercising, working on a project, or even just showing up for someone, consistency builds trust and results. Over time, the work you put in compounds, and suddenly, you realize how far you've come. The power of consistency lies in the fact that it doesn't demand perfection. It simply asks for effort, day after day, until one day, you look back and see how much you've grown. So, if you want to achieve something meaningful, remember this: consistency is your best friend. Discipline will help you show up even when you don't feel like it. And with every step you take, no matter how small, you'll be building the momentum that will carry you to success. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Just show up, keep going, and trust that the small efforts will add up to something big. Now, as I sit back and reflect on this journey, I realize that all the struggles, all the sacrifices, and all the discipline were worth it. It's not about the destination, it's about the person you become along the way. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: consistency is the key to everything. The power to change your life doesn't lie in big moments, it lies in the small, consistent actions you take every day.